Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm looking at two of my favourite synths. Both of these synths have something in common. They're both based around old Yamaha chips which were used in the Sega Mega Drive or the Sega Genesis in certain markets. So on the left we have from Twisted Electrons, this is the MegaFM and it's the Mark II version that I've got. And on the right, we've got from Kasser Synths, this is the DAFM Genesis. And to explain what chips are actually in these, in the Mark II, I haven't changed the default chips which came with it. I bought it secondhand, but I assume that the original chips that came with the synth have not been changed. So I'm assuming that is the Yamaha YM2612. And then in the DAFM Genesis, you can actually see through this little clear plastic window here, the chip that's in that, which is the Yamaha YM2612. Now this is the chip that came with the original Mega Drive, from what I can understand, and is supposedly a more lo-fi, dirty sounding version of the chip that was later produced, which is the YM3834, which is what's in the MegaFM Mark II. So I had a comment on one of my videos asking me to compare the MegaFM with the DAFM. I can't remember if it was a question to compare those two specifically, or whether it was about comparing the different chips. But anyway, this is what the video is going to be about. Now, it's not going to be a like-for-like comparison because although they're both using Yamaha chips, the UI, the format of the synths is very different, as you can see from just a straightforward visual comparison. I mean, to me, they both look great. They both look really stylish synths. They're both small and compact. Obviously, the DAFM is much smaller and more compact than the MegaFM. It's less than half the size. There's also differences between the way that these chips have been implemented. For example, the MegaFM contains 2 chips. Now each chip has 6 voices, so you have a maximum of 12 note polyphony in the MegaFM. Whereas the DAFM, as you can see from the front panel, just has 1 chip in it. So that means you have a maximum of 6 voices. In practice, I've found it doesn't really make any difference, even using very long envelopes. I find that the sound of these chips is so rich that 6 voices is fine. And the notes cut each other off. There's stealing, but that's all part of the sound as far as I'm concerned. I don't think the old Mega Drive games used a huge amount of big chords with long releases, because obviously they were trying to squeeze as much as they could out of the limited voice count. But even just playing it as a single monotimbral synth, I find the 6 voices on the DAFM is fine. In theory, it's very nice to have the 12 voices in the MegaFM, but, and this brings us on to probably the main difference between the two synths in terms of their implementation. MegaFM is monotimbral, so all those 12 voices are used for 1 patch, whereas the DAFM is 6 voice multitimbral. So in theory, again, that gives a great advantage to the DAFM. However, now we need to get into the UI, because saving patches on the MegaFM is very straightforward. I mean, I have seen some complaints online about the way that it requires 2 buttons to be pressed simultaneously and then to change the location to which you're saving the patch quickly. So let me just demonstrate. I mean, I'm just on an init patch. These are all init patches, but if I push those 2 buttons together, the screen flashes. I can choose whether to save it to 36 or to 37 or to 38 or whatever. And then once it's finished, it's flashing, it's saved. very straightforward. It's just blink to let me know that's done. That's great. On the DAFM, I'm just going to come around to the DAFM. The process of saving patches in a way that you can use them in your music is not as straightforward as it should be, in my view. I think this is the one area where this synth really falls down compared to its potential. I've done a video going through the UI of the DAFM. I'll put a link to it here, somewhere on the screen. But it's all manageable and fine and quite clear actually, until you get to this final set of screens, which is the patch management and saving screen. This really needs to be improved to unlock the potential of this synth. In theory, it's 6-voice multi-timbral, and you would think that would enable you to do sound design on voices while you're hearing. In an ideal world, you'd be able to do the sound design for each of the 6 voices while they're being played by MIDI to fine-tune everything to get it exactly how you want. But in practice, it's just, in my experience, not possible to do that. As far as I can work out, you can edit a voice using the front panel. You then need to save all 6 patches which are currently loaded into the 6 channels onto the SD card. You then need to take the SD card out of the DAFM, put it in your computer, change the name of the patches that you want into a format which can then be read as voices for the DAFM. But then to load each of those patches into one of the 6 MIDI channels, you need to send a MIDI CC message, program change, bank change message, from either your computer or whatever else you've got that can send external device you've got that can send MIDI CC changes. So as you can see, that's quite a convoluted process, and I really don't understand why it has to be that complicated. You have a screen that can display numbers and letters. You have an SD card, you have encoders, you have 2 encoders which are push encoders. In theory, I don't see why patch management can't all be done from the unit itself. That would make this a much more powerful and flexible synth. As it is, I've not really summoned up the patience to make whole songs with custom sounds on the DAFM so far, just because the whole rigmarole of taking the SD card out, putting it in my computer, renaming the patches, bringing the patches back in on the SD card, then sending a MIDI CC change. It's just too convoluted for me. But it's what you might call a vibe killer. So in essence, I've ended up using this more as a kind of live tweaking synth just to play with, rather than for sound design and proper composition and writing music, which in a way is a shame, because I think there's a lot of potential there if you could unlock it to make it a proper six channel multi-timbral FM synth using a really characterful chip there. So in theory, what should be a massive advantage for the DAFM, which is the fact that it's multi-timbral, is not really an advantage in practice, because I end up using both these synths the same way, just as live sound play instruments, essentially. You have the same issue, or you have other issues with the MegaFM, because obviously you can save a patch quite easily, as I've shown. Once you do that, it's got a number and you've got banks. So if you wanted to keep a record of what sound was where, you need to keep a list somewhere, either on paper or on a spreadsheet or something, of which voices go where. And the other issue is that obviously as soon as you load a patch, all of the faders are, at least in theory, out of place. So you're starting in no man's land, essentially. So for the issues that I've just mentioned, for those reasons, both of these synths are actually playing on a level playing field. The fact this has got 12 voices in practice, that doesn't matter to me, rather than 6. The fact that this is 6-voice multi-timbral rather than monotimbral, in practice, that doesn't matter to me just because of the limitations. With a few firmware updates, I feel that this could really, the DAFM could really leapfrog the MegaFM in terms of usage and make itself a far more useful synth in terms of sound design, saving patches, etc., making music. But at the moment, I see these as kind of level from that perspective. In terms of cost, I think the MegaFM is more expensive, but I bought the MegaFM secondhand. I bought the DAFM new on Tindy. I don't think there was a huge difference in price between the two of them, at least not one that I would comment on. I think they're both great in terms of feel. I quite like the little faders. I like the knobs, etc. on the MegaFM. The DAFM, even though it's only got these 2 encoders, they feel really great. I like the visual feedback of the screens in general. There's a couple of areas where those screens are confusing, like this one which I mentioned about the patch editing. Also, I find the envelopes, just the scaling of the envelopes is slightly confusing. I think this is a problem that a lot of synths have, that when they try to, even my Essence FM, when it shows the envelope on screen, the scale is not linear, so it's slightly misleading. Here you have the same thing. To fit the envelope on fit the envelopes on the screen, this is slightly misleading, but you get used to it. And in just terms of the general vibe, I love the blue. It's kind of greeny blue, aquamarine style of these screens. I think they look really great. And I also like the kind of red. I love these kind of displays as well, these LED displays. So I think they both look great. They both sound great. That's probably enough of me waffling on. What I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to have a look at just comparing the raw sine wave from the MegaFM, compare it to the DAFM, and then if I've got time in part 2, I might look at comparing some more detailed sound design comparisons. I think the person who asked me to compare them on my channel had an issue with distortion from the MegaFM. So I'll look at that as well. So that's what the video is going to be about. Thanks very much for watching. Please give me a like and a subscribe, and let's get started with part 1, which is going to compare the sine waves from the MegaFM with the DAFM. Okay, before I get started proper, I just want to point out how different the init patches of each of these synths are, because I think it's quite amusing. So on the MegaFM, you start with this lovely kind of fluty single, I think it's a single sine wave, as in from one operator, playing in the wide 6 mode. So that's 2 voices from one from each of the chips playing together. That's a lovely sound. So that's the MegaFM. That's the default init patch. Let's try the DAFM. And as you can hear, that's completely different vibe that it's giving you. It's very FM bass. Obviously, it's kind of. I just find it funny, the difference in vibe between the two synths when you use their init patches. Now, one thing you can probably pick up is the level of background noise from the DAFM. I don't know if that is the difference in the chip between the MegaFM and the DAFM, or in the quality of the synths. I suspect it might be a bit of both, but listen to the background noise between the DAFM, which you can hear now, and the MegaFM. It's almost silent comparatively. Okay, so take that for what it is. That's an indication of the kind of different flavor of these two synths. So I think if you are hoping to get the DAFM, having had the MegaFM, and thinking it might give you a cleaner sound, I think that's one thing to bear in mind. It's just an inherently dirtier sound. So let's hear that background noise again. Now you've got the volume knob at the back, which is also the power supply. So the on-off switch, I should say. There's no way really to get rid of that noise unless you use noise reduction software after the fact. Or I think I may have read somewhere that people use DI boxes maybe to boost the signal without getting that noise. I don't know if that works. I've never tried it. But for me, that's part of the inherent character of the DAFM. You're going to get that noisy background flavor, and it is what it is. Whereas the MegaFM, it's a lot cleaner. Now, I've not compared the Mark I MegaFM to the Mark II. Maybe the Mark I has a similar kind of background noise. I don't know. But this is what it is. Okay, so let's do the sine wave comparison. So I've got the oscilloscope there. Now we have the difficulty we always have with the MegaFM, which is that unlike modern digital FM synths, there's an element of distortion that you get when you increase the volume. So the question is, what is the actual sine wave? Obviously with the distortion, the sine wave changes. So let me just demonstrate that. So first of all, let me just take it off wide 6 to put it on poly 12. So we're just comparing one voice with one voice on the DAFM. And it is, as you can see from the oscilloscope, a slightly furry sine wave. If I increase the volume, there, look at that. You're getting that lovely distortion. It's kind of almost like wave folding. It's just clipping the top. So let's try and compare a clean sine wave against the DAFM. So let's... And let me increase the sustain level. So we've got... So I think that's what we're going to go with. Now it's got a slightly fluted quality to it. I want to get rid of the attack altogether. So it's just got an instantaneous start. So that is the MegaFM sine wave. Very characterful. Okay, let's switch to the DAFM. Now obviously, I've got more work to do here to get it to that kind of clean sound. So first of all, I need to go to the first screen. I'm not sat in an ideal position here, but that's fine. Let's change the algorithm so we've just got 4 separate carriers. So that's the last algorithm here. And I'll take off all the feedback just in case we end up using that. Using operator 1. Now I will also take off the velocity from each of the operators just to clear that up. And okay, so operator 4 is set up with a kind of organ envelope, which is what I want to use, so I'll just turn off all the other envelopes. Apologies, my hand's probably in the way for some of this, but that's fine. So you can see it's a slightly more involved process to change operators on the DAFM than the MegaFM, but it's not the end of the world. So I think there we're getting some distortion, just as we do on the MegaFM when we have the level too high. So the level is full. Let's reduce the level and see if that affects the sine wave. Okay, that's what we get out of the DAFM. Let's try the MegaFM. Okay, obviously we can tell that the operator's playing at 0.5 ratio rather than 1, so let's change that. Okay, that's the DAFM. Let's try the MegaFM. It's just a much cleaner sound. Back to the DAFM. Now that does sound like it might be distorting slightly, so let's reduce the level further. That's more similar. So I hope what that is demonstrating is just how different the fundamental tone is between the MegaFM and the DAFM. So you either have a kind of low total level for the operator, in which case you get quite a nasally sine wave that actually looks more like a square wave. Or a higher total level, which is still slightly misshapen. But sounds like a more distorted sine wave. So that's the DAFM. So it's not possible to get the DAFM to have that kind of more pure fluted tone from the MegaFM, at least the MegaFM mk2. Let's see if we can manipulate the Mk2 MegaFM to get it closer to the DAFM sine wave. So yeah, if we increase the total level or the total volume of the MegaFM, it does change the character of the sine wave. But it still sounds completely different to the DAFM. Let's see if the total level of the operator makes any difference. So that's the DAFM. That is the MegaFM. And I think what I've shown here in this comparison between the sine waves is just that the fundamental tone of these two synths is completely different. So that's part one of the video. Part two, I think I'm going to do a two operator sweep comparing the MegaFM and the DAFM, and I might do a couple of other sounds for the video. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. This is the end of part one. Okay, in this part of the video, I'm going to compare a simple two operator sweep between the MegaFM and the DAFM. The first thing I'll say here is that in putting this together, it's obvious that the envelopes of the MegaFM, they both are far longer in terms of maximum potential time, and there's also more gradations between the shortest and the longest time. So you've got more flexibility with the MegaFM envelope than you do with the DAFM envelope. I don't know if that's a characteristic of the chips or of the synths, but I just wanted to point that out. So what I've tried to do here is slightly match the MegaFM envelope to the DAFM envelope. It's not 100%, but what I'm learning is that these are two complementary synths. I don't think either replaces the other in terms of the sound of the chip. So let's go with the MegaFM two operator sweep. Okay, and now for the DAFM two operator sweep. Okay, I think I'm coming to the view that the MegaFM tone is more beautiful, perhaps. It's got more subtlety to it. The DAFM is more in your face, possibly more punchy, more characterful. I think that is the distinction I draw between them at this stage. Now, the other thing I wanted to do, as well as the sweep of that, the kind of the laddering, stepping effect that you hear on that envelope, I also want to just quickly show the kind of the release characteristics, which is as the sound dies out, you get a kind of musicality in that tone, which again is very characteristic of these old Yamaha chips. So what I'll do is I'll just play a chord and then let's listen as the sound dies out. Quite subtle, but you can hear there's a real variation in tone there, which there shouldn't really be, because all you should be hearing is a simple sine wave fading away into nothing, but there's a lot there. So let's do the same with the MegaFM. What I'll do is I'll do the same as I did on the DAFM. I'll put the release to 1 less than maximum, and we'll just do the same chord and hear how that sounds. So the same characteristic is there on the MegaFM as on the DAFM, but it's almost as if they've tried to suppress it in the MegaFM. So you get more of a standard release, but then if you listen very carefully in the background, almost at the level of background noise, you have that envelope still lingering on with the same characteristic changes in tone. But on the DAFM, as I've said previously, it's more in your face, it's more upfront. So that is another characteristic difference between the synths. And, you know, as we've got a kind of 2 operator patch now, that's the MegaFM. Let's start from 0 again. Let's do the same on the DAFM. So the DAFM again is more in your face. I don't know what it is. This is the MegaFM, by the way. So you've got a lot of variety of tone there, just from me changing the volume level from this low level here, which is about 15. When you increase it, you get a more abrasive tone. And the person who commented on my video was talking about distortion that they were hearing from their MegaFM, and I think that might be what they were talking about. If you have the volume low, then you get quite a pure tone, which is very beautiful, but it's more muffled in a way. But if you increase the volume, you get as I say, a more abrasive tone that will cut through more, but it does sound distorted. And you can hear that kind of distortion there. Let's switch to the DAFM. I think you can hear a bit of distortion there, but it's got a different quality to it. Now the volume, the master volume is on maximum on the DAFM. Let's reduce it and see if that makes any difference to the sound. It does make the tone a bit more subtle. Let's go back to the MegaFM. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about the differences there, and hopefully just comparing those two operator patches, you're starting to pick up some of the characteristic differences between the two synths. Yeah, that's really quite pretty, the MegaFM sound, whereas the DAFM sound I'd say it has more of a chiptune quality to it. And maybe the voice stealing is adding to it, because you've only got 6 voices maximum playing on the DAFM, whereas the MegaFM in theory could get muddier. Change to wide 6, then we're in a more similar playing field. Back to the DAFM. So they're set up with similar patches, so let me know in the comments which of the two you prefer. MegaFM. Okay, I think that's it for this video. Hopefully you found this useful, this comparison in the raw tone between the MegaFM from Twisted Electrons, the MegaFM 2 I should say, and the DAFM Genesis with the YM2612 chip. How much these differences are due to the different chips used between the synths and how much due to the actual synths themselves, I can't say. But hopefully you'll have found this interesting if you're trying to make a decision between which one you go for. As always, please give me a like and a subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.